Have you ever wondered what the deal is with the sea monsters in the Old Testament? These were one of the things that really puzzled me when I read through the Bible as a Christian. Sometimes for my devotionals, I used to close my eyes and randomly open the Bible in the hopes of finding something miraculously edifying for my day. Some days it would be the Exodus, on others it would be the crucifixion. Sometimes it would be the story of the early church, other times the story of the Israelite captivity. And then bam! God wrestling a sea monster. There are at least a couple such monsters depicted in the Bible, as in Job 26:10-13 and in Psalm 74:13-14. The former passage refers to Yahweh piercing and cutting up Rahab, the gliding serpent. The latter speaks of how God crushed the heads of Leviathan, the monster in the waters. Other passages like Psalm 89:8-10, Isaiah 51:9, and Isaiah 27:1 make further reference to God's conflict with these sea creatures, the last of which foreshadows a future defeat of Leviathan, implying that the battle was considered to be an ongoing one. The entirety of Job 41 is spent describing the beast in detail, with its double coat of armor, its mouthful of fearsome teeth, and its unique ability to spew flames. Why are these strange dragons of the sea in the totally non-mythological Judeo-Christian Bible? One thought, put forward primarily by creationists, is that Rahab and Leviathan are dinosaurs. Of course, this doesn't really explain the fire-breathing, but perhaps creationists are just as willing to speculate that dinosaurs could breathe fire as they are to speculate that biblical verses describing large sea monsters must be talking about dinosaurs that the best science tells us went extinct millions of years ago. Maybe we should also take seriously the possibility that dinosaurs are an elaborate satanic ruse meant to mislead us into sin. Somehow. Another thought argued by some Christian apologists is that Rahab and Leviathan are symbolic of certain nations or tribes that were once at war with or wronged the ancient Israelites. There is some support for this in Isaiah 30 verse 7, where Egypt is explicitly given the nickname Rahab the Do-Nothing, and Psalm 87:4, which mentions Rahab alongside Babel. The Hebrew word Rahab indicates pride or arrogance, so the suggestion is that some biblical authors took to calling Egypt Rahab to insinuate that Egypt was something like a proud, beastly nation. While this is undoubtedly how Rahab is used in certain contexts, problems still remain. Isaiah 30 verse 7 designates Egypt as Rahab, but this connection seems to presuppose an existing history, not just of Rahab as meaning pride or arrogance, but also as standing for an entity of some sort. Verse 6 lays out a list of creatures including lions, snakes, donkeys, and camels, and presumably Rahab is yet another creature, given as a title to Egypt, perhaps to imply that Egypt is like the beastliest of all beasts. Thus, it looks as if the connection of Rahab with Egypt comes after there is already a separate entity known as Rahab. This is what the Jewish Encyclopedia concludes as well. It must be noted that the Jewish exegetes deprived the word Rahab of its mythological character and explained it as merely an equivalent for arrogance, noise, or tumult, applied both to the roaring of the sea and to the arrogant noisiness and proud boasting of the Egyptians. A very interesting thing to notice about the context of Rahab's occurrence in Job 26 is that it comes at the end of a creation narrative. He spreads out the northern skies over empty space. He suspends the earth over nothing. He wraps up the waters in his clouds, yet the clouds do not burst under their weight. He marks out the horizon on the face of the waters for a boundary between light and darkness. Rahab doesn't seem to be your ordinary beast of the sea. It rather appears that he's been around for a very long time, since the beginning of the world, in fact. Psalm 74 also mentions Leviathan in the context of creation, recalling how God established the sun and moon and set all the boundaries of the earth. What sort of beings were these that existed along with God at the time of creation? John Walton, professor of Old Testament at Wheaton College, explains that, in the ancient world, the cosmic seas were populated with creatures that operated against the ordered system. Whether antithesis or enemy, they were viewed as threats to order, as they inhabited the region that was itself outside of the ordered system. In the Enuma Elish, we find the Babylonian story of the god Marduk defeating the sea monster known as Tiamat, often depicted as a serpent or dragon. Tiamat is often portrayed as an emblem of chaos, of a cosmos without order. After conquering her, Marduk splits Tiamat apart and creates the universe out of her corpse, thus bringing order out of chaos. This motif is seen in a number of other ancient sources too, such as the Canaanite version of Baal versus Yam, the Hittite version of Tarhunt versus Ilionka, or even the Egyptian version of Ra versus Apep. In all these stories, order is established and maintained by conquering chaos. The Israelites and other ancient Near Eastern peoples lived in a region where the oceans around them not only brought them food, goods, and travel, but could also cause massive destruction during flood season. It's not so surprising that the waters and the beasts residing in them were so central to the mythological narrative of order emerging out of chaos for many of the societies in the ancient Near East. From what we've seen, it looks as though the Israelites shared this common narrative with their neighbors. Not only are there the themes of primordial seas, a sea monster, a battle between the monster and a deity, and the creation of the cosmos, but we find this twice in the Bible for two differently named monsters. We even find a likely remnant of this in Genesis 1, where God hovers over the surface of primordial waters in verse 2, before he creates the seas and oceans in verse 10. I have previously covered the Bible's ancient three-tiered model of the cosmos in episode 12 of this series, and the numerous similarities between the Hebrew creation myths and the Enuma Elish in 2 articles on my site, which will be linked to in the video description. Of course, this may not sit well with some theists who want to keep on believing that the Bible's creation story is scientifically accurate. But so many connections to other ancient Near Eastern creation myths exist that it seems an exercise in willful ignorance to deny that what we find in the tales of Rahab and Leviathan are primitive mythological creation stories that likely predate Genesis. Mark S. Smith, professor of Hebrew and Judaic Studies at New York University, concurs. Genesis 1 built on and supplanted other Israelite versions of creation that understood the primordial universe as a field of battle between two divine wills. The next time someone tells you the Bible is perfectly compatible with modern science, ask them what they think about sea monsters.